Hello everyone, welcome to the 4th episode of the Ultimate AFL Show for season 2016, and in this episode I am going to review week 3 of the NAB Challenge as well as looking towards this weekend's NAB Challenge matches. Now this weekend is the final week of the NAB Challenge, so after this weekend it just gets so exciting because that means the season proper is right around the corner. Now we're not going to waste any time, we're going to get straight into looking at week 3 of the NAB Challenge, which started last Thursday night in WA. That's right, it started with the West Coast Eagles taking on the Gold Coast Suns, where West Coast was able to record a 3-point victory by beating the Gold Coast Suns. It ended 0-7-13, 55-1-6-7, 52. There was only one super goal kicker for the match, and that went to Gold Coast's Lamens. The goal kickers for West Coast, LaCroix and McGovern kicked 2 each, while Darling, Ellis and McLinns kicked singles. And for Gold Coast, Wright Davis kicked 2 each, while Martin and Day got singles between them. So it was an interesting match for the West Coast Eagles, getting smashed by 100 points against Adelaide in Adelaide a few weeks ago. They were wanting to bounce back. They haven't really showed a lot of firepower in this NAB Challenge. They haven't been playing their full squad though, so I'll give that exception, but you'd think they'd be showing a little bit more, I guess, firepower considering they lost the grand final last year. It is only the pre-season though, and I'm sure they're going to be right and ready to go against Brisbane in round 1 at Domain Stadium. The next game was on Friday night. It was the Battle of the Bridge between the Sydney Swans and the Greater Western Sydney Giants. And it's fair to say the Giants actually taught Sydney a bit of a lesson in this game. They finished winning the game 0-14-10-94, defeating Sydney 1-8-3-60. The Swans really didn't play that good brand of football, and the Giants, well, they were just all over them, especially in the second half. The goal kickers for the Giants, Johnson kicked 3, Thomason and Stewart kicked 2 each. Palmer, Munford, Griffin, Green, Kelly, Shill and Hoskin Elliott kicked singles between them, while for the Sydney Swans, Healy and Papley kicked 2 between them, while Kennedy, Sinclair, Hanelbury and the big forward gun Lance Franklin kicked singles between themselves. Now the lights actually went out in this match, so the game actually got delayed, or they weren't working, so the game actually got delayed. So that was an interesting part of the match, and yeah, very good display by the Greater Western Sydney Giants. They seem like a team. They seem like that sort of team this year. They're going to be sneaking around the top 8, so it's going to be a very interesting year for the Giants. The next game was on Saturday, the earlier Saturday game between Essendon and Geelong. Of course, Essendon won their first NAB Challenge game against Carlton, but did not win their second game. In fact, it was probably a bit of a reality check for Essendon, really. They didn't kick a goal until the second half, and Geelong were just all over them. They were in front at half-time, 10-3 to 0-3, so Essendon only had 3 behinds at half-time, and the game finished Essendon 0-3-6-24, defeating by Geelong 0-17-9, 111. So I guess it was just back to reality for Essendon, really, because, you know, this drug saga is going to play a big part on them this year. We know that. That's just stating the obvious, isn't it? So it was a really good display by Essendon. Grimley, Long, Dempsey kicked their only 3 goals of the match, while Geelong, Vardy kicked 4, Hawkins, Caddy kicked 2 each, while Kirsten, Stanley, Guthrie, Dangerfield, Lang, Smith, Gregson, Cockatoo and Duncan kicked singles between them. The later match on Sunday at Wagga Wagga was North Melbourne and Collingwood. It was a very close game, and in the end finished 110-8-77. North Melbourne defeated by Collingwood 0-12-13-85. Mullet kicked the only super goal for the match for North Melbourne. And the goal kickers, Petrie kicked 3. He's having a good pre-season. Petrie kicked a bag of goals a couple of weeks ago against St Kilda, and I think it was about 4 goals I think he kicked in that game. He's kicked 3 in this game, so he's having a very good pre-season by the looks of it. Nahas kicked 2, while Goldstein, Mullet, Gibson, Thomas and Brown kicked goals between them, single goals between them. Collingwood, Gould kicked 3, Varco kicked 2, Vasolo also kicked 2, Adams kicked 2 as well, and Pendlebury, who was making his debut for season 2016, kicked a single along with Goodyear and Blair. So Collingwood winning that game. They haven't dropped a game yet in the NAB Challenge, and they take on the Bulldogs this week. So they look like a side with good quality, that's for sure. And North Melbourne, well, they're thereabouts as well. They played an interesting game. Like I said, Petrie, he's having a great pre-season. Sunday's games started with the Western Bulldogs and Melbourne taking on each other. The Western Bulldogs were playing a younger kind of different side, so not their full squad. They had a lot of players out. Murphy, Stringer, just to name a few. There's a lot more than that. Not giving excuses for the Western Bulldogs. And Melbourne, they were playing a bit of a stronger kind of side. Yeah, it was actually a good game, actually. It finished Melbourne coming from behind and winning 0-10, 12-72, defeating the Western Bulldogs 1-7-9-60. They haven't dropped a game in the NAB Challenge so far, so that's quite impressive at this point in time. Webb kicked the only super goal of the game for the Western Bulldogs and for the match, while the Dogs' goal kickers were Hovat, Roughhead, Minson, Redpath, Williams, Honeychurch and Jong. Only single goal kickers in that game for the Western Bulldogs. So that's very interesting there. Of course, they didn't have some of their main goal kickers in for the match. Players like Dixon and obviously Stringer and players like that. While the Melbourne goal kickers, Watts kicked 3, so he had a pretty good day actually in front of goal. And yeah, hopefully a big year from him this year. He's had such bad years in the past, hasn't he? Pedersen, Garlett, Vandenberg, Tyson, Harms, Jones, Jones that is, and Frost kicked singles each. So Melbourne coming from behind to win that game, defeating the Western Bulldogs. Now the final match of week 3 was between the Brisbane Lions and the St Kilda Football Club in Mackay, and due to the weather, the game was washed out. It was about an hour and a half, 2 hours before the match that the AFL said no, the conditions are absolutely terrible. Looking at the pictures, the ground just looked absolutely soaked and flooded, and it didn't look like it was a very good draining ground, although some people were saying that it is. But yeah, it was definitely the right decision by the AFL. So that game was washed out and didn't get played. So okay, it's time to now have a look at the Ultimate AFL Show's NAB Challenge Ladder for 2016. Every team has played 2 games, so the ladder is starting to shape up coming in to the final week of the NAB Challenge this weekend. Fremantle, they still lead the top of the table after 2 wins against Richmond and Adelaide. Melbourne and Collingwood are the other undefeated teams who top off the top 3 of the ladder. Adelaide Crows are in 4th, so they top off the top 4. Just having a look at the bottom there, Port Adelaide have not won a game and they are down on the bottom of the ladder due to percentage. Carlton just have that higher percentage than them. Just also to mention as well, Brisbane Lions, St Kilda. Brisbane is on 15th, St Kilda on 16th. They've both been awarded 2 points after that washout game, so we've just split the 4 points into 2. The percentage has not been affected. So Fremantle leading at this current stage, and well, they've got an interesting game against Geelong this Saturday. So can they keep that spot? It'll be interesting to see who finishes on the top of the table. Okay, time now to have a look at the final week of the NAB Challenge for season 2016. There is 9 matches this weekend, so every club is playing a match in this final week. It starts on Thursday night between Richmond and Port Adelaide, 2 teams who played in an elimination final just a couple of years ago at Adelaide Oval. You might remember that, where Port Adelaide absolutely smashed Richmond in that game. I'm sorry to bring back that memory there, Richmond fans, but just had to be said. This game at Etihad Stadium, the first game of AFL for season 2016 at Etihad Stadium, and the game will be getting underway at 7 p.m. Friday night there are 2 matches, so a double header to end the NAB Challenge on a Friday night. We start with Carlton and the Sydney Swans, a game that I'm actually going to because I will be in Melbourne this weekend for mainly the Australian Cup horse race meeting, but this game I am going to on Friday night. It is at 5:50 p.m. at Etihad Stadium. Looking forward to seeing how Carlton go, and also looking forward to seeing how Sydney are as well. 2 teams who both lost their last matches in the NAB Challenge, so it'll be interesting to see how they shape up between each other. The final game on Friday night is at 7:40 at Metricon Stadium between the Gold Coast Suns and the Adelaide Crows. Saturday there is a triple header, and it starts at Etihad Stadium between Collingwood and the Western Bulldogs at 1:10 p.m. It then goes to Domain Stadium for Fremantle and Geelong. That game getting underway at 4:10 p.m. And the final game at Etihad Stadium at 7:10 p.m. it is Hawthorn and North Melbourne, 2 teams who plays games each year in Tasmania. So a little bit of rivalry there between those 2 teams. Sunday we have 3 games to top off the NAB Challenge for 2016. It starts at Metricon Stadium between the Brisbane Lions and the GWS Giants. That game getting underway at 1:10 p.m. Then at 4:10 p.m. we have Melbourne v St Kilda. That game at Etihad Stadium. And then the final game at Domain Stadium kicking off at 7:10 p.m. we have West Coast up against Essendon. It is going to be an interesting game, that game. Can Essendon handle the travelling as well as their young, developing, top-up playing side? It'll be interesting to see. Okay, so that ends this episode of the Ultimate AFL Show. I'll be back next week with another episode, of course, the 5th episode of the Ultimate AFL Show for 2016, where I will wrap up the NAB Challenge by having a look at the final week, as well as giving you the final ladder as well for the NAB Challenge for 2016. And then once that episode's over, it really heats up because the season is just around the corner. Don't forget to like, comment and share this video. Don't forget to subscribe as well to get a new episode of this every Wednesday. Until next Wednesday, I'm Jacob. I'll see you later.